Hey everyone, and welcome back to the English Prep Podcast. Today we're diving into something that, might be a little bit stressful, but really it's something exciting.
Definitely.
English proficiency exams.
Yes. So exams are
I know.
they're great.
I know, right? They could be a little bit daunting, but they're a really important step for anybody who wants to study or work or even just travel confidently in English-speaking environments.
Absolutely.
So to help us navigate this whole world of English exams, we've got a fantastic expert here with us today.
Hi, everyone.
So maybe we could start by, just breaking it down for us. Like, what exactly are we talking about when we say English proficiency exam?
Yeah. So an English proficiency exam is a standardized test that's specifically designed to assess and measure your ability to use the English language.
Okay.
And it's not just about, grammar and vocabulary. It really focuses on those real world skills.
Yeah.
How well can you communicate in like academic or professional situations?
Right.
So it's really about putting your English to the test in like a practical way.
Okay. So it's not just about like textbook English. It's about proving you can actually use it
Exactly.
out in the world.
Yeah.
Got it. And I imagine that means they test you on a whole bunch of different skills, not just one thing.
Yeah, that's right. So there are 4 key areas that are always tested.
Okay.
Reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
Makes sense. You need all those to actually function
Right.
in English.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I know just mentioning the word exams can make people a little nervous, but I think it's important to remember that getting a good score on one of these exams can really open doors for you.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like a validation of all your hard work, and it shows, future employers or universities that you've got the skills to succeed.
It's a really valuable tool to have.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and I guess it's kind of a confidence booster, too.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about some of the specific exams out there. I'm guessing some names are more familiar than others. What are the ones that people should really know about?
Yeah, so the 2 that you probably hear about the most often are the IELTS and the TOEFL.
Okay, those are the big ones. I feel like those are the ones that I always hear people debating.
Yeah.
Which one's better, which one's harder.
Right, exactly.
So what's the deal with those two?
So those are definitely the most globally recognized ones, but that doesn't mean they're the only options or even the best fit for everyone.
Okay.
But let's start by just understanding what each one is all about. So IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System,
Okay.
and it's particularly popular in the UK, Australia, Canada.
Got it. So
Yep.
if you're thinking about, studying abroad, living in one of those countries, that might be the exam to focus on.
Exactly.
Okay. And how does that compare to the TOEFL?
So one of the key differences is in the speaking test.
Okay.
So with IELTS, you actually have a face-to-face interview with an examiner.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
it's like a real conversation.
Yeah, it's designed to be like a natural interaction so they can really assess your fluency and your pronunciation and how well you can express yourself spontaneously.
I bet that makes some people nervous, but I also imagine it kind of helps to, calm the nerves a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're actually talking to a person and not just like,
Yeah, it feels more like a conversation, less like an interrogation.
right. That makes sense.
Right.
So what about the TOEFL then? Is that completely different?
So TOEFL stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language, and that one's the top choice for a lot of U.S. universities. And unlike the IELTS, the TOEFL is primarily computer-based.
Oh, okay. So everything's on a computer, no human interaction.
Well, there is a speaking section, but you're basically recording your answers,
Okay.
and they're evaluated later, so it's a little bit different. Some people find that less intimidating, if they're not as comfortable with the face-to-face.
Yeah, and I bet some people might be more comfortable expressing themselves if they have a little bit more time to think about it. Okay, so it sounds like both have their own kind of vibe, their own advantages and disadvantages.
Okay.
But one thing I'm wondering about is the scoring. Like if you get a certain score on the IELTS, does that mean the same thing as that same score on the TOEFL?
That's a great question, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky because they don't actually use the same scoring system.
Oh.
So you can't really compare them directly.
Okay.
The IELTS uses a band score system that goes from 1 to 9.
Okay.
And the TOEFL gives you a numerical score out of 120.
So you can't be like, oh, I got an 8 on both,
Right.
and assume it means the same thing.
Exactly.
You really have to do your research and see what score you actually need for whatever you're applying to.
Precisely. Don't compare apples to oranges.
Right. Good advice. Okay, so we've talked about these 2 big ones, but I'm curious, are there any other English proficiency exams out there that people might want to consider?
Yeah, definitely. There are a couple of others that, they might not be as well known, but they could be a really good fit for certain people.
Huh. Oh, interesting. Okay, so like hidden gems.
Exactly, hidden gem.
I like that. Okay, so tell me about these hidden gem exams.
So one that's becoming more and more popular is the PT Academic,
Okay.
which stands for Pearson Test of English.
PTE. Okay. I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it. What makes it special?
Well, one of the big things is that it's known for its super fast results.
Oh, really?
So you can get your scores back in just a few days.
Wow, that's a huge plus.
Yeah, especially if you're, on a tight deadline.
Yeah, no waiting around forever.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So fast results, that's a big one. And what else?
And it's kind of similar to the IELTS in that it really focuses on, practical, everyday English skills, the kind of English you'd use in an academic setting.
So again, proving you can use it in the real world.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, so PT fast results, practical English.
Yeah.
What about the other hidden gem you mentioned?
The other one is the Cambridge English exams.
Right.
And this is actually a whole family of exams.
Oh, wow.
So there are different ones like the CAE, the CPE.
Whole family. Okay, so what are they all about?
Yeah, so they're very well respected, especially in Europe, and they're often seen as, a bit more challenging.
Okay, so if you want to really show off your advanced skills, Cambridge might be the way to go.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got all these different exams. We've got IELTS, TOEFL, PITEC, Cambridge. How do you even begin to choose the right one? It feels a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to consider, but the most important thing to remember is that there's no one right answer. It really depends on your own individual goals and your preferences and, even your learning style.
Okay, so how do you even start to figure that out? What are some questions people should ask themselves?
Well, the first question and the most important one is why are you taking this exam?
Your why.
Exactly. What are you hoping to achieve with it?
Okay, so is it for a specific university? Are you trying to get a certain job, or are you just, doing it for yourself to level up your skills?
Right, exactly. And once you know why you're taking it, then you can start to think about which exam aligns best with those goals.
Okay, so if you're trying to get into, let's say university in the U.S., the TOEFL is probably the way to go.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Okay, so figure out your why first, and then what?
Then you can start thinking about, your own learning style and preferences. So,
Sure.
Are you somebody who loves computers? Are you more comfortable with pen and paper?
Yeah, are you a tech person or not?
Exactly. And that can kind of help you decide, maybe if you love computers, the TOEFL's a good option because it's all computer-based.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're more of a traditional learner, maybe the IELTS is better for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what about the speaking component? We talked about that before. That seems like a pretty big difference between some of these exams.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about how you feel most comfortable expressing yourself. Do you like to, just talk and be spontaneous, or do you need a little bit more time to plan out what you're going to say?
Yeah, so if you're, like a really chatty person, maybe that face-to-face IELTS interview is a good fit for you. But if you're, someone who needs a moment to gather your thoughts, maybe the TOEFL speaking section is a little less stressful.
Right.
So think about your speaking style, too.
Yeah, and your comfort level.
Got it. So we've got our why, we've thought about our learning style, we've considered, how comfortable we are with speaking. Is there anything else we should be keeping in mind?
Yeah, I think it's also important to think about, your long-term vision for your English language journey.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, are you planning to continue learning and improving even after you've taken the exam?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's not just about, passing the exam. It's about what happens after.
Exactly.
So how do we make sure that we don't just stop learning once we've, gotten that score that we need?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many fun ways to keep improving your English.
Yeah.
Like watching movies and TV shows.
Oh, yeah.
Listening to music.
Reading books.
Reading books, exactly. Even just, talking to native speakers whenever you get the chance.
Right. It's all about making English part of your life, not just something you study for a test.
Exactly.
Okay. So before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge.
Okay.
What is one small step that you can take today to get a little closer to your English goals?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't have to be a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's taking a practice test just to kind of see where you're at. Maybe it's doing a little research about the different exams,
Yeah.
seeing which one feels like a good fit for you. Or maybe it's just, committing to spending 15 minutes every day reading an English article or listening to an English podcast.
Those are great ideas.
Little things can make a big difference.
Absolutely. Consistency is key.
Consistency is key. And don't forget to have fun.
Yes.
If you're enjoying the process, you're so much more likely to stick with it.
For sure.
So find what works for you, whether it's movies, music, chatting with friends, whatever it is, make it fun.
Exactly.
Okay, so to sum up our deep dive today, We explored the world of English proficiency exams.
It did.
We talked about those big names, the IELTS and the TOEFL.
Mm-hmm.
We uncovered some hidden gems like PTE and the Cambridge exams.
Gems.
And we talked about some strategies for choosing the right exam for you and for, staying motivated on your English learning journey.
And I think the most important takeaway is that, the exam is really just the beginning.
Yeah.
It's not the end goal. It's a stepping stone to bigger and better things.
It's all about opening up a world of possibilities.
Exactly.
Well, that's it for today's episode of the English Prep Podcast. Thanks for joining us and happy learning.
Bye, everyone.